I'm someone who spends a great deal of time in often disproportionately deep thought about the stuff I'm going to carry in my pockets. I've done videos on previous pocket carry systems, and I've really enjoyed all the thought experiments in pursuit of my ultimate pocket carry format. It turns out there's a whole community of enthusiasts who think like this, and as with car detailing being the enthusiast name for washing a car, the nomenclature for this obsession is the initialism for everyday carry, EDC. For an EDC enthusiast, the choice of watch is really important. Along with the items you keep in your pockets, the watch is the one item that stays with you no matter what. And because it's something you wear, the way it looks is especially important. For me, a watch was one of the first things I ever really wanted, and I mean really wanted, obsessively wanted more than anything. I saw Johnny Lee Miller's character wearing it in the film Hackers, and that was it. The power of product placement suddenly had a very real effect on my life. I've actually still got the watch now. There's something very appealing about having a watch with features like a compass and an altimeter. It screams adventure, and the miniaturization of these things into a watch was profoundly exciting to me as a 15-year-old, and even now, over 20 years later, I still get the same feeling. Fast forward to today, and with the Apple Watch Ultra, it's time to reevaluate Apple's smartwatch ecosystem in the context of a more rugged EDC-friendly watch. We're seeing battery life now that means this thing can survive a whole day without being tethered to your phone, and I think that's the most interesting part of the new battery life that we're seeing. And this, combined with its genuine ruggedness, is why it's such an appealing product. Now that we're seeing these being smashed up by YouTubers, we're seeing that the glass is no longer the weakest link. It's actually the screen inside that cuts out before the glass breaks. And that's obviously all down to the sort of titanium case that absorbs the shock and all the rest of it. And that's really interesting because it means we get the best of both worlds. We get the scratch proofness of the sapphire glass without it shattering like we've seen with sapphire glass before. The Ultra has a surprising combination of ruggedness and beauty. I didn't expect it to be quite as stylish as it is. I don't just mean in terms of having a more adventure sense of style, I mean small details like the extremely fine edges being polished so it actually glints in the light. It's a bit of a style cue to the more jewellery focused style that watches have evolved out of, and I think it really makes this thing work well as a watch. I was pretty worried about the size. I spent most of my teenage years being endearingly teased by my friends and family for wearing the Casio Pro Trek, which looked enormous, and I really didn't want to reinstate this reputation. Weight isn't an issue at all, it certainly doesn't feel heavy. The size is fairly big, but it's actually so attractive overall, it really just looks good rather than big, I think. I do have a slight doubt about the orange button. I don't think it really needs to be orange, and it would be a more versatile design if it was just grey. I've had an Apple Watch since the first version, and I've always been really interested in this idea of seeing how far it can go towards me not needing to bring my phone with me when I'm away from home. If you use an Apple Watch without it being tethered to your phone, just using its cellular connection, it really burns through battery very quickly. But with the Ultra, I'm actually confident it will see me through the whole day, even if I leave my phone behind, and it'll still have enough left for sleep tracking and the alarm clock the next morning. And it's really funny because a lot of people are very excited by the idea that they don't need to charge their watch for 3 days running and all the lifestyle change that will bring. But for me, that's kind of ridiculous. I don't really see the advantage of that. I'm fine just charging it once in a 24-hour period, but I'm very excited by the idea that it can see me through that day if I leave my phone behind. In terms of the cellular connection itself, I think it's actually a little bit better than the previous watch as well. I've been to places where I used to get 1 bar on the Series 5, and I'm getting 2 with the Ultra. So I think there's an improvement there as well. So we've looked at a little bit of EDC background and why I think the Ultra is such an interesting product. So let's jump in and we'll see what the first couple of weeks with this have been like. Let's get straight to 2 disappointments. The first is that the speaker is really not that loud. They make such a song and dance about it in the videos. You're kind of expecting something quite exciting. In reality, I don't think it's that loud. You can't use it on the side of a mountain in a howling gale. There have been kind of moderately loud environments that I've used it in, and I've struggled to hear the person talking on it. So that's something to think about. And also, like the other old Apple Watches, if it's wet, the speaker is completely useless. You can hardly hear it, even if you do the eject water thing, which I think is a very clever approach to try and fix the problem. But it doesn't really work. It stays super quiet for hours afterwards. Again, this isn't a new problem with the Apple Watch. The old one suffered from the same issue. It's just something to remember, and given the hype around it, a little bit of a disappointment. The second is with the straps. So the Alpine and the Trail loops are material straps. They do absorb water, and they will make your sleeves soggy and hold water for some time after you get them wet. The Ocean Band obviously won't do that. But the Ocean Band and the Alpine loop both have the notches, so that's something to consider with those. You might find, like I do quite often, that it's either slightly too tight or slightly too loose. The Velcro one is obviously infinitely adjustable, but there's an annoying lack of colour options on that one, I think, as well. So just some things to think about when you're thinking about what strap to get with this. I used to carry this 1000 lumen Olight Perrin Mini in my pockets every day, which is an amazing thing, almost indispensable. I really recommend it. But with the Ultra, I'm going to try not carrying this and just relying on the torch mode on the Ultra. So let's just have a quick brightness comparison. This is the Perrin Mini on its normal mode, and this is the full brightness mode. So that is insanely bright for something you can carry in your pocket. Let's just shine it there so you can kind of get an idea. So if we switch to the watch, you just click that button in and it goes onto its torch mode. It actually dims when you shine it towards yourself like that, but if you tap the screen it comes back to full brightness. So this is the watch on full brightness. It's definitely brighter than my Series 5, although it doesn't quite seem to be representing the 2000 nits. I don't think they're letting that run at this brightness. Maybe it's an overheating or battery issue or something like that. But considering it's on my wrist and I can access it with that side button, this is a seriously convenient way of just grabbing some extra light, and it means I can avoid carrying this, which was the biggest and heaviest thing in my pocket system. This is pretty bright, and if you're in a dark place, this is bright enough. You can see everything in front of you if it's completely dark. It's good enough for close range work, basically. It just means you can't project that light a bit further away. So if you're trying to find your way or trying to find something that you're working with, this is bright enough. Obviously it's not quite as useful as the periscope format where you could clip it on top of your clothes and have two hands free for forward facing light. With this, obviously it's either kind of shining you in the face, or if you turn it away from you, you kind of lose the use of this hand. So it's not without its compromises, this system, but for the convenience, and given that I'm never going to be that far away from something like the Perrin Mini, I think this is a really good balance of brightness and usefulness. So carrying the Ultra has meant I don't have to carry my phone with me. It's also meant I don't have to carry this torch with me, and because I was using the Tesla with the phone as the key, I'm already used to not having to carry big bulky car keys, which is an amazing thing. And luckily the watch has a third-party app that lets me control the Tesla from the watch as well. So I'm still enjoying the benefit of not having a clunky car key in my pocket as well. Another thing I've started using is the focus state system. So in iOS 16, this is a feature that's kind of really been polished, and it works really nicely with the Apple Watch now. So when you set up a focus state, you can actually say which watch face should come on when you're in that focus state. So you can tune your watch faces in terms of the complications and what sort of information you need access to for those different focus states. So you could set up an evening one or a weekend one or a work one, and you can have the watch set up exactly how you want in those different situations. And then you can set up how and when these focus states become active. Obviously you can switch to them manually, but you can also set up a schedule, and they also do this predictive thing where it'll guess the right one for you as well. So that's all really neat. Coming from the Series 5, one of the things that really struck me about the Ultra was just how responsive the screen is. It's instant, and that sort of magical experience of interacting with something that's so responsive, it really makes the thing feel quite special. And I think Apple are very aware of that, which is why they put so much effort into that experience with the interface there. In terms of the screen size itself, this is interesting because it is a good bit bigger than the other Apple Watches, and I think a lot of people are quite excited by the idea that they can do more and see more on the screen. Well, actually that's not always the case. The screen in a lot of cases is simply an enlarged version of the normal Apple Watch interface, and you can see this looking at the application screen side by side. You're not suddenly seeing any more applications on the screen or anything like that, and the watch faces are the same in terms of how much information they can display and their complications. So what that means is everything is just a little bit bigger on the Ultra. However, it's actually not that simple, because where they use dynamic type, the font sizes are actually matched more to real life equivalents. So you can have the same size in the watch settings, but you still get more words per line. So that means you are actually getting the effect of displaying more text on the screen at once on the Ultra, because it is a bigger screen. And I think we'll start to see applications exploiting the larger screen in various ways as time goes on as well. It's interesting, some people are saying they don't think the Ultra is a very Apple-like design. I'm not quite sure what they mean by that. I think the two things I've bought from Apple recently, the AirPods Max and this, I think both really represent peak Apple design. We haven't seen anything like this in the consumer tech space. What Apple are doing in terms of working with materials and miniaturization in industrial design and technology is really, really exciting. If you've enjoyed this EDC focused video, you should definitely check out this video next, where I look at this pocket-sized raincoat, which is Gore-Tex shake dry material. Really interesting material, and I make comparisons with another really interesting waterproof coat material in that video too. Here are some comments to let you know it'll be worth your while, and I'll see you there.